Welcome to the Dare to Share Challenge. I am so excited to have you back with us. We have an amazing guest waiting in the wings, ready to take to the stage. If you're new here, this is the Dare to Share Challenge. This is where real and raw leaders come on to the stage and they dare to share their truth, their story, and most importantly, their vulnerability, so that you see the human behind the perception, so that the next time you're looking up at someone that you're inspired by and motivated by and empowered by, you realize that behind the scenes, they are just the same as you and I. And if they can do it, so can you. So with that being said, let's welcome our guest today, the amazing Lisa Garner.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
I'm so excited to have you with us, Lisa. And we do need to do a disclaimer. We are not related that we know of. We just coincidentally have the same surname, which I have to say is not very common either.
Yeah, maybe we share a bit of heritage if we went back in our DNA.
Who knows? I love it. And I'm here for the synchronicity. Beautiful. So, Lisa, before we dive in, I always like to ask the guests, what made you say yes to coming on this challenge? Because it's not your normal, just typical nice and airy podcast, right? This is a little bit scarier than that, a little bit deeper, a little bit more vulnerable. So what made you say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to be a part of this challenge?
I think for me, when I saw it on social media, obviously I was attracted to the surname straight away, thinking, wow, same surname. But mainly for me, the whole meaning behind it, you know, being authentic, being real, sharing those vulnerabilities, because throughout my career, I always think the best leaders have been the people who've been able to show vulnerability. And when I delve into talking to you about like the topics behind it, I always thought I was very good at sharing and being authentic until fairly recently. And then I was like, I think I need to do a bit more of this. So this is very attractive.
I love that. And you know what? You're not alone. How many of us think that we're being vulnerable and authentic? And it's not that we're not. It's just that we play in our comfort zone, right? We have a certain level where we will stretch to, and that's where we stay because that's what feels safe. And this challenge is all about stretching that level so that we get a little bit deeper and you guys start to see the real human behind the perception. And that's when we can just relate on such a deeper level and really see ourselves in the leaders that we are inspired by. So, Lisa, that being said, there is something that we need to clarify before we dive into the questions. And that is which level of vulnerability you're going to be sharing with us today. So we have two options to choose from. We have the stretchy level, which is it's your life story, right? It's your hero's journey. It's your trials, your tribulations, the things that you've overcome and come out the other side of. And now you're able to help people with those lessons. Or we have the extreme level, which is something that you're experiencing, navigating, working through behind the scenes right now. Neither is a get out clause. Both are equally as vulnerable. But Lisa, where do you want to take us today?
I suppose it's kind of in the middle of the two, because the bit that's the scary and most vulnerable bit kind of needs a little bit of a story to take me there.
We need a little bit of a warm-up. I get it. Okay, so we're going to go for both. We're going to combo it and we're going to go extreme and stretchy. I love it. So are you ready to dive in?
I am ready.
She's ready. Okay. So the first question that I have for you, Lisa, is what does being a real and a raw leader mean to you? And we're not just talking about in business, right? We're talking about the woman, the human, the individual that is living an everyday life like we all are behind the scenes. That realness and that rawness, how does that look and how does that feel to you in your everyday life?
Yeah, so I think for me, and I kind of alluded to this at the beginning, is I've always felt throughout my life and career that I kind of really separated the two. So there's like the work Lisa, and then there's the home Lisa, and there's this part that like I probably didn't share enough of, especially when I stepped into leadership. There was this, I felt like I was playing a part. And I see that because I do coaching with leaders as well. And I see that this like real like separation of like, this is professional me and this is home me and this is the bit nobody sees. It's that little bit that we keep to ourselves. But I think being a real and raw leader, like people need to see a human being. They need to like see vulnerability. They need to know that like there is another side to you and that you're not just this like, I'm always on and I'm always happy and I'm always, this is how I present myself to the world. So I think that for me is what real leadership is. It's like being a human and being real and owning the things that maybe are your weaknesses as well. Like leaders for me that have told me their weaknesses have been my best leaders that I've worked with.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And I don't know if you work in the corporate world or not, but just from what you said there, that's what really kind of stood out to me is, especially in that world, we have such a switch on and a switch off. And a face that we will show and a face that we won't show. And like you said, those weaknesses or maybe certain aspects of your life that you feel they're not meant for the workspace or, you know, in that environment because it's not professional.
Yeah.
But really, in reality, we're all humans. We're all having those things behind the scenes. And the more that we start to share of that, the more that we realize, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm not on my own. I'm not, you know, alone in this. I think that's so powerful.
Absolutely. Particularly things like imposter syndrome. That's a huge thing. So I've got a foot in the corporate world and the non-corporate world. So I coach and train in recruitment businesses in the corporate world, but I do well-being training for them as well. But then I'm actually a hypnotherapist as well. So I do rapid transformational therapy, hypnotherapy, Reiki. So I'm in like almost like two different workings.
I love that because they're so kind of what you would think of polar opposites as well. And it's bringing those worlds together. There's so many people that are starting to do that, like where you would think that they're like an A-type and then actually they're in this whole spiritual woo-woo world and it's bringing those two realities together. I love that so much.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Are you ready for the big question?
Yeah.
Okay. So Lisa, and for the audience, for you guys watching, just so that you know, I never know what any of the guests are going to share. I like to be equally as surprised as you are and waiting to hear what they're going to share with us. But I do ask that they make it a little bit stretchy, a little bit more vulnerable than they would normally go. So you can trust that whenever you're watching any of these challenges, you are going to get more realness, more rawness than you are going to get anywhere else. So with that being said, Lisa, what are you willing to dare to share with us all today?
So I decide what I think will be most helpful to share is my journey of trying to navigate being a leader and navigating my career whilst grieving, because I think that's super helpful and I would have loved to have really had more input when it was happening to me. So my dad got diagnosed with Alzheimer's back in 2014, and terrible time, and it was just when my little boy was born as well. So I was massively in the corporate world then. So I was like head of talent, head of L&D in the corporate world. Already had a daughter who was 5.5, so had all the challenges of having like young children and a baby, and then my dad had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it was really tough. And what made it harder was me, which I now know because now I'm a therapist. I've done a lot of learning, and I grew up with this impression that I'm the strong one. I help other people. I'm such a great listener. So that kind of conditioning that I had growing up made me think I am strong. I am stoic. So this is like my label. So this is who I'm going to be in this scenario. So as you know, Alzheimer's is a very long journey. Like we're talking, 2020 when we lost my dad. So there was a big chunk of time from 2014 to 2020 where I was operating in a, I'm going to throw myself into work and just be super effective and really good and very strong. So, and I know that that's the advice people get when they're grieving. Just throw yourself into work and then work will be great and you'll feel amazing. And it just doesn't work that way, because now as a therapist, I know that when you push it all down and you put on your mask and you go, I'm strong, you're playing a part. It's like you're acting. So I spent years of my life acting as the part of I'm so strong. And probably one of the biggest mistakes I made, and to people out there who are grieving and can really relate to this and are like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm a mum, or whether you're a mum or not a mum, grieving is terrible. And I'm trying to be this person to everybody, and I'm trying to be this work person. You've got to talk to people, and you've got to be vulnerable and authentic. And you've got to just allow yourself to show that you're hurting, because it's just so not good for you to just try and be a superhero. And I have amazing friends, amazing family, a great husband who's very emotionally intelligent. And I was just playing the strong part and asking everyone else how they were, flipping all the conversations onto them. So I think that for me, that's probably the most raw and authentic I can be, because anyone who knows me would be like, she was amazing. She was so strong. I can't believe how she dealt with it. But actually it wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah. And Lisa, I would love your thoughts on, so many of us as leaders feel like if we show that we're hurting, or that we're grieving in this situation, or that we're navigating something behind the scenes where we don't really know how, right? We don't know how to overcome grief. We just have to go through it. What are your thoughts on the fact that so many of us feel that if we show that, it diminishes our leadership and our authority and the perception that others have on us, and possibly, clients, if we're entrepreneurs, wanting to invest in us because they suddenly see us as weak, or they suddenly see us as someone who maybe doesn't have it all together as much as they thought they did. What's your perceptions on that?
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail right on the head there. In order to feel like you're effective and you're successful, then you do hide this stuff, because you don't want anyone to see weakness in you. Particularly as a woman, I feel you're in board meetings, you're with the board, you're presenting.
It's already hard enough being there.
Exactly. You're already at a bit of a disadvantage, and you're proving that you're strong and you're powerful and you can do all this stuff. So it is super hard. But I would say my advice is to connect with the right people. If you're in the corporate world and you cannot share, if you're hurting and going through pain and going through a bad time in your life, then maybe ask the questions are you in the right environment? Because it's so important for your mental health. Luckily for me, I was in environments where I could share. I was super lucky, because when my dad was passing away, it was COVID, it was 2020. Nobody were allowed in care homes. And unfortunately, it was that bad that he could not be looked after at home. And the organisation I worked with put me on voluntary furlough. So I spent the last 7 days of my dad's life with him, which was amazing. Now, if I'd not been vulnerable, I'd not been authentic, and I'd not shared, and I'd just been I'm amazing at my job and I'm just going to power on, then I probably wouldn't have spent the last days of his life with him. So that for me is exactly why you've got to be in the right environment, where you can say to people, look, I'm great in normal circumstances, but life's not normal at the moment. And I'm going to give you as much as I can, but I really do need something back. And that, luckily, I was with an organisation that were this is the ideal time for you to go on voluntary furlough and spend that time with him, which was precious, just so precious. Yeah.
And all because you were vulnerable enough to share what may have been perceived as weakness, but is actually just part of human life.
Yeah.
And for you guys watching, what I would love to reiterate there as well is, it's not just if you're in corporate, right? Even if you're your own boss, if you're a coach, if you're a mentor, if you're an entrepreneur of any kind, it's knowing it's exactly the same. Your clients are not going to think any lesser of you. They're going to actually see more human in you. And that will create a deeper connection than any facade or face that you can put on. Wow, Lisa, this is such a powerful, incredible share. And I know that as someone who has also been very, in their masculine and in that energy of, I need to be strong and stoic. I love that word that you used there. It can be hard to step into that vulnerability and really allow ourselves to be seen in that messy middle, right? When we haven't necessarily got it all together.
Absolutely. And that's real strength, right? That's what I never realized until that point. I didn't realize how much strength comes from vulnerability and seeing others share their stories. And I do a lot of well-being work, and obviously I am a coach as well and a hypnotherapist, and I see this all the time. And there's nothing more attractive than a person who says, I haven't got it all right. Like, look at me, you think I'm this, that, and the other, but really, this is what's happening behind the scenes. So many people who are struggling with their mental health, and they share, and then other people feel heard and feel like they're not alone. And you're like, that's real strength. That's stoic, rather than I've just put the walls up and I'm just going to pretend that I'm okay. So that was a big learn for me, a big learn.
Absolutely. Lisa, it's so powerful, so incredible. I would love for you to share with everyone watching how they can get into your incredible world and the gifts that you bring into their lives.
Great. So what I did as part of the grieving process is I did a lot of studying. One of the pillars of well-being is learning. So I was lucky enough to work in environments where some of my learning was funded, some of it was self-funded when I became self-employed. So I've done rapid transformational therapy, which I'm sure you've heard of, Claire. The great Marissa Peer brought that to the world. And that's hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and NLP. So the way you speak to yourself, the things that you say, the story that you tell is so powerful in this healing process. I'm a Reiki master. I've done loads of energy work. I used to just go and lay there and have Reiki done when I was grieving, and I'd come out, I'd have a good cry, and then feel amazing. So I'd say if people are going through the grief process, energy work's amazing. Hypnotherapy is amazing. Particularly, a lot of people, when they grieve, what they grieve is because I was grieving someone who was alive, and then when he passed, because you grieve a lot in the process of dementia. But sometimes what you grieve is aspects of the person that you've lost that you wish you had done differently. So that's where hypnotherapy, rapid transformational therapy, and things like that can be super helpful. So I kind of combine all those things with well-being coaching to help people to allow themselves to just be who they are and then write their story. What we don't realize, we're constantly like an author of our own book, and you can write it one way and it's not very pleasant, but you can rewrite it and build something great for the future. So I think for me, that was like my saving grace, really.
Absolutely. Be the author of your own story. I love that. I love that phrase so much. I've heard it a few times, and it's so powerful. And when you step into that ownership of, oh, you mean it doesn't have to end like this? It doesn't have to pan out like that. Oh, I don't like this script. Let's change it. So powerful. So, Lisa, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
So I've got a website, so it's just Lisa Garner Hypnotherapy, so nice and easy for the website. I'm on socials as well. So I've got Lisa G2450 on Instagram, and I've got a Facebook page as well. So it's just Lisa Jane on that. But yeah, the main areas I focus on are things like grief and imposter syndrome and building confidence. And obviously with the hypnotherapy, I do a lot of work around things like OCD and fears and phobias and that kind of thing as well. Yeah.
Amazing. So powerful, so powerful. So make sure that you go and get in Lisa's world. If you're listening to this whilst you're doing something else, come back. The links will be in the show notes below, and go and head over and absorb yourself in Lisa's energy. Lisa, thank you so much for taking to the stage today, for daring to share your own realness, your own rawness, and your own vulnerability, and really showing us all the human behind the perception.
Thank you so much, Claire. It's been a pleasure. I love your energy.
Thank you so much. And for you guys watching, I will see you next time on the Dare to Share Challenge. Bye for now.